Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, brought to you by Party Slate, the first website designed specifically for event professionals and venues. And on The Wedding Biz, I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons and who I feel are the next generation icons of the weddings and event industry. All this is to provide you with education and inspiration and empowerment. So, I gotta first ask something. Do any of you, actually talk to your plants? Is that a real thing? I have a friend, I was mentioning how these plants or trees, whatever I have, they're like 5 feet tall, are just don't seem to be doing all that well. And she said, well, do you talk to your plants? I mean, she said it very seriously. I mean, I've heard that before. So I started to experiment, but what do you say to your plants? I mean, have a good day? You know, I feel self-conscious, like I'm alone in my place. I'm talking to my plants. I'm feeling self-conscious. So just before I recorded this introduction, I wanted to go open up some windows. I have a bunch of really big windows and I've got to go in between these trees, plants, whatever it is I have. And I go to open the window. I start to walk away and I realize I didn't say anything to my plants. I didn't greet my plants. And I was actually feeling guilty. Like, what is this coming to? So I turn back around. I go to the plants. I apologize. I apologize to my own plants. I don't know. I need somehow someone to shed some light on this for me. But anyway, so last week's episode, if you happen to miss it, was about Joe Goldblatt, a true pioneer of the event industry. He has written, edited, and co-authored, you ready for this? 38 books, including the first textbook in the event industry. And Joe founded ISIS, the International Special Events Society, which is now known as ILEA. And he created the CSEP program. And we talked about a lot of other things. I mean, this guy's really seasoned. So if you missed it last week, you might want to check it out. So this week, very, very excited to introduce to you Robert Sherman, owner of Washington Talent, the iconic entertainment company out of the Washington, D.C. area, founded 52 years ago, which Robert eventually took over with a partner and now owns. And Robert has transformed it to a whole other level. This is a guy who is clearly passionate and fully committed to what he does and is in it, as he says, to bring joy not only to his clients, but also his industry partners too. You're going to hear all about his secret sauce, which includes how he has evolved himself and his business, as well as a dynamic conversation about the idea of finding and forming a new business partnership. And wait till you hear who his new partner is. So enjoy my conversation with Robert Sherman. Robert, man, I have been looking forward to having you on the show for so long. I'm really excited.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And, I was thinking about you, with music and entertainment and my own experience that when I was 6 years old, and I've said this maybe a couple times on the show, when I was 6, we're talking like the beginning of first grade. I'm in this big auditorium, right? Elementary school. I'm kind of scared. It's first grade. And it's something they're going to be talking to us about art and music, something like that. They hand out these like white plastic flutophones, which is like a recorder. I don't know if you remember this. Like this is a long time ago.
For sure.
Right. So they hand it out and they teach us a song and I start to play it. The music bug hits me then. Like even at this age, I'm 6 and I vividly remember it. And that was it for me the rest of my life. What was it for you? Like what was that moment?
Wasn't at 6 because I was playing sports, didn't care about playing music. Matter of fact, my father made me pick an instrument when I was 12 years old, forced me, and I figured, you know what, I'm going to irritate you as much as I can, old man. And
Just
I
to
picked
get back
drums.
at him.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, you picked drums of all instruments.
I picked drums, and he said I could quit. If I just stayed with it for 6 months, I could quit if I wanted to. And of course, after 6 months, I didn't want to practice. I didn't want to play. I wanted to play sports.
Yeah.
Being a musician wasn't cool.
Yeah.
So after 6
Hey, wait a minute. What?
Hey, it wasn't back then.
You're right. No, you're right. Okay.
So after 6 months, I go to him and I say, Dad, I want to quit. And he says, okay, son, if you want to be a loser, go ahead and quit.
He said that?
Exactly. If you want to be a quitter, go ahead and quit. So I said, oh no. I didn't want to be a quitter. I didn't want to be a loser in his eyes. So I said, okay, Dad, I'll keep playing. Why not? And then the greatest thing happened. There was a variety show and my friend Charlie was playing drums this was 7th grade, 8th grade. He was playing in a band. They played Freebird.
Oh yeah, Leonard Skinner, sure.
In front of the whole school. And every girl loved Charlie. He played the drums. He had long hair. He was cool.
Yeah.
From then on, I was hooked. That was the bug.
That was
That was it.
Well, what happened during school? Like, so were you in any school bands, or this was just on your own outside of school?
I was, like I said, I was in all the sports.
Yeah.
I wasn't into music at all. I wasn't in any of the bands. And when I saw him play the drums and I thought that was so great, all of a sudden I started to practice like crazy. And then one day, he actually got sick and couldn't play. He was in a heavy metal band called Public Enemy back then.
It was called Public Enemy?
Public Enemy.
That's
before
funny.
the rap group Public
right.
Enemy.
Right.
And they asked me to come in and we had to play a Judas Priest song. I think it was Breaking the Law by Judas Priest.
Yeah.
And it was a variety show they were playing. I came in and I played it, and that was it.
And then you got hooked.
Yeah, then I was playing all the time. I played in that band. We called ourselves Public Enemy, and that's what we did.
Did you go to college and major in music at all?
No. I went to college and I majored in accounting, and then I got out of college in the 80s, and I became a certified public accountant. And
I cannot picture you as a certified public accountant.
Hated it. Great education.
Yeah.
Hated it. Loved playing music. Wanted to keep playing music.
But you learned some of the essentials of business, though.
It was the most amazing education I could have gotten. And it's helped me through today. It's helped me.
But why is that?
Because it taught me business skills that I would not have ever known if I hadn't gone to school. In other words, basic, from accounting to choice of entity to profit and loss to cash flow, things that I would have never known existed if it wasn't for school. I would have never been something I ever learned.
Now, didn't you also get a law degree?
Yes, I graduated college, and then I took 2 years off and worked as a booking agent, selling bands and playing in bands, and decided that, and I was actually working as a CPA as well. All this was going on at the same time. And I was working for a lawyer in a tax case, and I realized that we'd won a pretty big tax case, and the lawyer took all the credit and I did all the work because I was unable to practice in front of the court because I wasn't a lawyer. I was just a CPA.
Mm.
So that angered me a little bit. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to go back to law school. So that's what I did. And I went back to law school and became a lawyer. Yes.
And so did you get a job as a lawyer after that?
Well, it was a big decision. When I got out of law school, I interviewed with a bunch of law firms, and it was actually my father who came to me because I was playing in the band that I play in today, actually Onyx. I was all through law school, all through college. I played in this band, and we did very well. And he came to me and he said, Onyx has been so successful for you. Instead of going to practice law, why don't you build more bands? Why don't you manage bands?
That is interesting. Your father suggested this. I'm thinking back to the very beginning when you had that conversation with him about the drums. And I know your father's a successful entrepreneur. And so to turn around and how did that feel to you? That must have been incredible.
He always told me as a kid, get the education and then do whatever you want to do.
Mm.
So it really fit everything. He lived up to what he tried to teach me. He didn't want me to just be a musician. He wanted me to get an education. He always said no one could take the education away from you. That's what he always said.
That's a really good point.
So once I had the education, he was like, go do what you love. Go do what you're passionate about. And I was successful at it. So it was, he's my father is a great father and still alive and around today. And I'm crazy about him.
So what was Onyx doing at that time? Was it cover jobs or
weddings and bar mitzvahs and corporate?
Did you book them yourself or was this through some other company?
No, I had hired an agent. Washington Talent Agency was the agent that I'd hired.
Out of Washington, D.C.?
Yep. And they kept me busy, really busy. And then while I was in college, they hired me to be an agent for them. So I was able to book bands, make money that way, as well as manage the band and play in the band Onyx.
And where was the point where your father suggested you do your own business around music? Was it at that time?
No, it was actually Onyx started in 83, and then I went to college. I went to law school. I graduated law school in 1992. When I got out of law school was when he said Onyx was really successful in 1992. We were doing great. He said, Robert, why don't you go build bands? You do it really well. You know the business. You know the industry. You know musicians. You know people. And you love it.
Yeah. I want to come back to that. But I know when I came to town, which was, I came to DC in the 80s from school in Boston. And, when I started my first band, Sound Connection, it was like 1990. That's when I started to get into the field in DC. I heard all about Onyx. Onyx was like, I mean, I know that Onyx does everything now, but back then was like the king of the mitzvah market, right? And so when you say very successful, what was it about Onyx, the band that you formed and you led, that made it so successful in that market?
Because we did more than just play music. We were entertainers. Everybody was on cordless microphones. This was back in the 80s and the 90s.
That was rare, cordless
very
microphones.
Rare. And we were entertainers. We created moments. We would go out in the crowd. We would bring people up on the stage. We had a theory of breaking down the barrier. You know, when you have a band set up,
right?
If you're up on we used to always suggest don't put us on a stage.
Huh.
And the reason we did is because we wanted to have no barrier between the audience and the band.
Yes.
And Onyx had at the time an amazing performer in Ginny. You remember Ginny? I think you met her with me.
Singer.
Yeah, female singer. And we would go out of our way. Back then, that's when I learned about relationship building and how important it is to get to know what your customer wants, what they need, what they create moments is how I would describe it. Create the light. And that's what we used to do. We used to do costumes back then. We would dress the kids up. We would dress the adults up. We would create moments, create pictures. The biggest compliment I ever got was from a videographer who once said that I make his job easy because I create moments for him to shoot.
Right. You're handing them on like a silver platter.
It was the biggest compliment we'd ever received.
Well, and from what I remember of those days, that was really that was groundbreaking, if I remember correctly. I mean, I know that because I remember coming to town and thinking that I got to start a band and let me see what the supposed top bands are in town. I remember I saw like 3 or 4 of them. So Onyx wasn't one of them, but I remember again hearing all about you all and how you had this interactive element, like you're saying. Now, I didn't know all of the background at the time about how you were dealing with clients and how you looked at it as creating moments. And I learned that a lot later. But from what I know, that was fairly groundbreaking in this town.
Nobody was doing that. Now, my understanding is in New York, the DJs and the MCs and the dancers were doing all that during that time.
Yeah.
But in Washington, D.C., that was not happening. We were it.
And you're talking in D.C., a band versus the DJ, MC dancers in New York City.
Exactly.
So when your father so you have all this going on, he tells you should start your own business, really focus on music. What did you do next?
I did what he told me to do. I focused on music. I actually kept working as a lawyer. The talent agency, Washington Talent, they hired me as their in-house counsel.
Uh-huh.
So, and at the time, this was in the mid-90s now, there was a lot of legal activity going on with various agencies in the Washington, D.C. area. So I was very busy with legal work.
Yes.
But at the same time, I was building new bands. When I say building new bands, I was hiring musicians to come in and I was forming new groups that were modeled after Onyx. That was the whole concept of it, was to try to make them, I was trying to teach them how to create the moments for people at different price points, at different levels, to expand on what I love.
See, and again, just because I know the town, nobody else was building more than, I mean, eventually I started second and third, but you were first at it. That was really unusual at the time for a quote unquote band leader to then start other bands that he or she is not in.
Yeah, and I think even prior to that, prior to building Onyx, it was all bands were partnerships in the DC area. I mean, that's what we were.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, it wasn't like one guy managed it. It was everybody was
right. It was like a democracy, which does not work.
Well, the reason it doesn't work is because most of us musicians, we don't have a lot of money, and the van would break down, or we'd need a new microphone, or we'd do this, and everyone would have to chip in money, and nobody had the bread. So
yeah, right.
So somebody had to have it. So
well, and I would also say that people probably did not have the same vision. That's very hard to have, especially the kind of vision that you had. That's a whole different ballgame for a band person. So you start building multiple bands. What happens next? Because I know that at this point, you own the company and you've brought it to completely new heights. When did that happen relative to this part of the storyline?
Well, in 92, I was working as a lawyer for Washington Talent. I was building bands, and I hired Washington Talent to represent those bands. Remember, it's just like anything else. I needed distribution.
Yeah.
I had the product.
Yeah.
But without distribution, I did not have the access to the clients, the distribution chain. Washington Talent did. So that's how I used. I hired them. And so from 92 to 1995, 96, somewhere in that area, I was working for them as a lawyer. And then I was also building bands like crazy, and they were booking those bands.
How many bands are we talking about?
Wow. I had, I think in 96, I had 6.
I don't know how you do that.
7?
6 bands. And it's really you by yourself.
Yes, I had some help from.
I mean, I know now
that I had
we'll
hired.
get to that. You have a whole team,
Right. But back then, I had one guy that was helping me, and then he left, and I got another guy. So it was me and one other guy.
And so you eventually bought out Washington Talent, essentially?
Actually, Washington Talent was a great story because I became very friendly with the owners of Washington Talent Agency, and we were not only business associates, but we were good friends. And I had built so many bands that my bands were a big part of their business.
I'll bet.
So when one of the partners resigned and retired, they came to me and offered it to me. They came and so there was in 1998 when I got ownership interest, there were 3 of us. And then a few years later, the other guy retired, and now I'm partners with Chuck.
That's right. So what would you say that you brought to the company at that time that was different? Because again, I know that you coming in and taking over Catapult, I mean, they were successful. I want to give them their due. They were very successful. They've been around now, including you're owning it for 50 years or something crazy like that?
52 years.
52 years.
They've been in business.
So what is it that you were thinking when you took over? Because that's also a lot of responsibility. I mean, were you scared at all?
Oh, yeah. I was all of 33 years old. And yes, I was educated, but I had no experience other than I ran bands. So no, I was very nervous. I was very honored to be, a part of it, but very nervous.
And so what was it that you did decide to do with it? Because like I say, I know that at that time, I remember the history, as successful as Washington Talent was, now, I mean, it just went to a whole nother level. What was it that you brought to it?
Well, first of all, managing the bands made it so prior to managing the bands, we just represented the bands. We were just an agent. So you'd sign a contract with a band for 2 or 3 years, and then at the end of 2 or 3 years, the band could move on. Well, when we managed the bands, obviously the name, et cetera, we own the names and we own, the rights to the bands. So first thing I did is I made it so we didn't have to worry every 2 or 3 or 4 years that we had to negotiate with a new band. We didn't have to worry about losing a band.
That's right.
That was huge. The second thing we did is we expanded our market. We realized what was happening in New York, which had been going on for years with the MCs, the DJs, and the dancers in the bar mitzvah world. So I went out and I found some partners, and we developed the DJ, dancer, MC groups. And that expanded our operation significantly. And then we went out and looked for additional services. For example, we have a full-blown photography department now. We have a full-blown video department. We do lighting, pretty much everything now. And by expanding services, we were able to expand the market share.
So it's a one-stop shop.
Exactly.
And I know that planners, people, it's so much easier just to come to one place and not have to worry and get it all. People love that.
That's a huge plus when they don't have to go elsewhere and they know everybody's connected.
That's right. Well, and also the whole signature of Washington Talent. I mean, if you had to describe that, don't you have a phrase? You have some kind of a branding phrase. I'm slipping my mind right now.
Yes, we create happiness one event at a time.
Tell me about that.
Well, listen, I know you think that's kind of corny. I know you do. But
I get what's behind it.
I will tell you, I really, so you got to really believe in it or you don't. And I do. If you think about what we do for a living, I mean, all of us, anybody in the event industry, whether really our job is to make people happy. I've watched a lot of your other guests on your show. I've listened to them, and they all basically say the same thing. I mean, they want to make people happy. They want to make.
They say we're in the happy business.
We are in the happy business.
Yeah.
So I just put it out there for what it is, and you know what? I really believe in it. I really believe in that concept, and it's not just though. Remember, who are you making happy? It's not just the end user client. It's for us. We have all these entertainers that we send out. The entertainers have to be happy, because if the entertainers aren't happy, then they're not going to make the end user client happy, right? We work with the most amazing and creative event planners. You got to make them happy. They spend a lot of time developing the concept and the feel and the emotion of what they want this party to be. It's our job to help with that. That's our job.
Yeah.
We got to make them happy. You have locations, from the load in, from the time you load in from the time you get there in the loading dock to the security guards. You got to make them happy. to the employees in your own office that from the guy that answers the phone to the accounting department. It's about making everybody happy.
Yeah, it's internal, not just external.
Right. And again, I know you, like I said, you called me corny, and you're probably right. It is.
I didn't say that.
But I really, yes, you did. You said it's a little hokey, but the reality of it is, I believe it.
Yeah.
And it's the motto of our company. We create happiness one event at a time, and that's our goal. Exceed expectations.
Now, and I know that your reputation in town is stellar in terms of that, and that you're known to be very easy to deal with, very flexible. And look, I know I'm in the business, and I've even dealt with it sometimes myself in my early days, that I wasn't always so easy to deal with, quote unquote. You know, I wasn't necessarily perceived as flexible. And you all have had a reputation where you're really respected for that. How is it that you do work with people like planners in order to get that and to get them in your corner like that?
Well, the first thing is I try to find out what they want. What is important to them? Like, you know, Andy, you say you weren't, you say your reputation was might have been so easy.
Reputation, but I know that I struggled in the early days.
But I'll say this: you kept your entertainers very happy. You always did. What I loved about you is you went out of your way to keep them happy all the time, and that I respect that, and they respect that.
Yeah.
All I did was try to balance it out because, for example, event planners, from what I've seen, if they're going to feed the band or they're feed the entertainer, that's great, but they don't want to have to worry about that. They've got too much going on their plate. They don't want to worry about paying for your parking.
Yeah.
They don't want to worry, even if they say they're going to do it. Think about the responsibility on their heads. I mean, come on.
That's right.
The entire event is on them.
Yeah.
You know, we've got our part, and our part is important, really important, but their part is huge. So the answer to the question is I try to find out what's important to them, and I try to make it easy. So, you know, I tell my guys, if you get fed, great. If not, bring something on the side.
Right.
You know, breaks. Let's not worry about breaks. We're hired to play music. Let's play music.
Yeah.
And as a musician myself, I'd rather play than break anyway. So that's just me.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, you know, on the show, you know, the people I interview, I'm not going to name any names, but there's some very big people when the microphone is off, you know, knowing that I'm in music and entertainment, who will say to me, I mean, we're talking very big people, all right, saying, you know, I just can't believe these band leaders and these bands who are more concerned about their breaks and rather than thinking of the momentum of the party, and also when are they going to get fed? And I mean, Robert, it blows me away that these planners are telling me this. You know, this is super high level. It is unusual, you know, except for the very top of the music and entertainment, you know, to do that. To have that perspective.
And I would imagine, though, that the event planners are expressing this to various entertainers and other people in the industry that do this, but people aren't listening.
Yeah. And there's this a certain amount of arrogance. And, you know, there are people with reputation of being prima donnas and all of that.
But again, everything's about the why. Everything we do is about the why. Why are we doing this? Why do we do this? We do this to make people happy. And again, you got to look at that people is a broad term, and I'm going to stick with that. Again, sometimes we worry about our musicians, sometimes you worry about your employees, sometimes you worry about your end user client. At the end of the day, in my opinion, we have to worry about everybody.
That's right.
And everybody's got to be happy. So that's why it surprises me too, but it is what it is. And I try to use that as a thing for people to understand when they get involved with us, that we're flexible. We're easy.
If you are an event planner, venue, caterer, photographer, or any other industry professional, you really should be aware of and using the Party Slate marketing platform. And I want to say, I only work with sponsors whose product or service I'm either fully aware of or even use myself. So you can create a free profile that can act as a photo-rich portfolio, or Party Slate has additional membership options available. And if you're planning or involved with an event, from weddings to fundraisers to baby showers and really everything in between, you should use Party Slate to get inspired. You know, save your favorite ideas and contact top professionals to help create your dream event. New photos from real events are uploaded to Party Slate daily, and their editorial team publishes articles that highlight the latest trends and planning tips. It is a really great site. You've got to visit partyslate.com to get started. And again, that's partyslate.com. I've also learned, relative to all of this, my focus again in the early days was get the greatest singers, the greatest instrumentalists, and just kill it out there. And now I realize that, and even at the highest levels, okay, the band is good enough. I think a lot of the attitude is, band's good, okay, but how are they to work with? I'm finding especially to the people in the industry, and we'll talk about clients in a moment, love to hear your process, but to planners and all, like you're saying, we are part of we are a small part, an important part though, but of a very big picture, huge amount of responsibilities. They don't want to worry about it. That was really eye-opening for me, that it is so much more than just the talent. It might even be, I used to say talent was 90% of it. Maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 40%. It's the whole picture.
Years ago, one of my employees convinced me to go to a seminar in Las Vegas with the company Zappos.
Okay. And
the most amazing thing I learned there was how they do things. When they hire somebody, it's a 2-part test. It's talent. You got to have the talent.
Mm-hmm.
But the second part is you got to have the right mindset. And to Zappos, as I interpreted it, was if you had one without the other, you weren't going to have a job there. And I really took that home. This was back in the 2000s, the early 2000s.
Yeah.
He made me go to this or convinced me to go to this. He actually took me there kicking and screaming, but I'm glad I did it. But it was very eye-opening because it really is a great way to look at things in our industry as well. Because, first of all, talent is very subjective. So let's just assume that all the talent's good. But at the end of the day, you got talent. You got to have the talent, right?
Right. I would say that first.
But you got to have that. I say it's equal because if you've got talent and you don't have the right attitude, you don't have the right demeanor, what good's the talent?
Right.
There's
plenty. Really good point. There, and again, we're talking about some major planners, really complaining to me about a lot of these acts that they're dealing with that attitude. And some have named certain acts and companies, and I know the quality is up there, but yeah, that is critical, is the balance. So what about with the clients? What is your process like with clients?
Are you talking about as a band leader or as the
company owner? Because you set the tone for the band leaders. So I would say, talking about your perspective as the owner of the company and the brand, it then trickles down to the band leaders.
Well, first of all, we are a company that tries to meet everybody's needs. And I know that a lot of business people would say you can't do business that way. That's not a good business model. But at the end of the day, we believe that everybody at whatever price point you're at, you deserve a good photographer. You deserve a good band, a good DJ. Everybody deserves good. It doesn't mean if you're going to pay 15 or 20 or 30 or 50,000, you get one, and then at $500 you get nothing. Everybody has to have it. So that's the company philosophy. That's the first thing. So when we talk to a customer, we try, even though we do a large volume and we issue a lot of contracts a year, we try still to what you call custom design.
Yes.
We try to do custom design as best as we can. And what I mean by that is every party's different. There's not one wedding that I've ever done, and I've been doing this my whole entire life, that's the same. They're all different. All the brides and grooms, they have different thoughts, different feelings, and we try to find what those are. And again, the first part of the conversation, whenever we're having a conversation with a client, is we want to know about their location. We want to know about their significant others. We want to know about what their vision is, what they see in the wedding. What are they looking for? This is way before, obviously, you have to get to budget at some point.
Right.
You have no choice. But before you ever get there, you want to know what a vision is. And I guess the philosophy is we try to fill that vision at any price point.
Well, and also in terms of vision and everyone being different, I agree with that. It's interesting. I think there's maybe a misunderstanding that a wedding is a wedding is a wedding. But I would say the chemistry, even of that, like, okay, let's say you're going from weekend to weekend, a wedding of 200 people, another 200, another 200. The chemistry is really different from weekend to weekend. There is no way to actually know. You can't make an assumption.
You have to talk to them.
It's like a chemical equation.
It is. And what you might get at the time that you make the sale or the booking might be different at the time that they do the actual event. So that's why if, let's say, I sell band X, the band leader of band X is still going to have many conversations with this bride and groom to find out what their chemistry is. Like, I was mentioning before, many people, like the band Onyx, we create moments, but those moments sometimes we're very interactive. We're like chameleons. And I think a lot of the bands that we represent are like chameleons, which means that, it's real easy to take somebody who's got a lot of energy and say, hey, tone it down a little bit. It's really impossible to take somebody with no energy and say, hey, pump it up.
Right.
So that communication is critical to know what your client wants. And that's why, you gave me the words, the phrase custom design.
Yeah.
But that's really what I do. I mean, it's really what we do. It's what we try to do.
What about DJs versus bands? How do you feel about that?
All right.
Because I'm going to say,
I've been playing drums my whole life. What do you think I'm going to say?
But you have a very strong DJ division as well, though.
I do, and I've got great guys that I work with. I'm honored to work with the men and women that I work with in the DJ world, and I have a lot of respect for them. Matter of fact, my son is a DJ.
Yeah,
I think that the DJs really they have the same responsibilities that we do as bands. If you're the DJ, your responsibility to your client is to communicate with them and customize every event's got to be customized. You can't do it any other way. And if you're gonna make your customer happy, you got to do it this way. I think just being objective for a minute. I mean, obviously, a band, when you're not everybody all the time dances, and I think what a band does is it gives you something to look at, something to see visually that might be different than a DJ would do it to somebody who's not there.
Well, and also with the DJs, but what about the whole issue of band versus DJ for a wedding? I mean, I'm noticing in my history of decades of doing this, the demographic of today, the couples didn't necessarily grow up to bands like we did.
Well, it used to be, you and I used to think of it as, hey, if you don't have the money, if you don't have the budget, you're going to go with a DJ. Otherwise, you're going to go with the band.
That's how it used to be. You're right.
That is not like that now.
Yeah.
I will go one better. One of the female singers that I work with, she just got married and she picked a DJ.
Oh, jeez.
And I think that's a huge function of how she was raised. She's probably 26, 27 years old, and she grew up listening to DJs, not listening to bands.
That's right.
So I think nowadays people pick DJs not having anything to do with budget in a lot of cases. It's because they have this vision of the wedding singer band.
Yeah, well, but look, I know that there are great DJs out there, obviously, who really know how to get a crowd going. I know that. However, a band to me has far more opportunity to really bring energy into the room. If it's a good band that, again, understands what you're talking about, all the preparation ahead of time, knows how to be spontaneous in the moment, read the crowd, can't just strictly go by the details or past history of other experiences, got to be able to read the crowd and work that crowd. To me, there's more opportunity, if it's really the right band, to be able to take it to a whole nother level.
There's no question. I agree with you on that. I just think that it's a matter of education.
That's it.
It's a matter, because I can't tell you, we do live showcases every single month. Our bands do.
Yeah.
And prospective clients can come in and watch the band play for 15, 20 minutes. I cannot tell you how many people have come and said, oh, I was going to have a DJ. All I was thinking about was a DJ. They see these showcases.
They feel it.
Because again, I made the joke about the Wedding Singer movie, but the reality is a lot of these people, younger people in particular, they believe that the bands are old, that they play old music. And the reality is, and you manage quite a few bands, it's not that way anymore. It's different. The bands now play this current music as any DJ can play, and they can, and the musicians are appropriate age, et cetera. So it's a matter of education.
I agree. It is. Another topic I want to get into with Robert too is the concept of partnership. A lot of people listening here, a lot of us have partners, a lot of us don't. People are thinking about it. Things change in business and in our lives and our trajectory. And there's a big question. Is it the right time to take on a partner? What does it mean to take on a partner? That's a big deal. And using us as an example, because we have become business partners recently. And this started long time ago, right? We started talking like really like dating like about a year ago in terms of starting to really get to know each other, the process of considering whether or not you want to have a partnership and then how you go about doing it and checking someone out. This has been such an incredibly exciting and learning experience for me. But there, in the beginning, we were both tentative.
Yeah, well, obviously, we've been competitors most of our careers.
Right.
I mean, come on. I don't mind telling you in front of everybody that it's nice to be on your side.
Listen, I feel the same, man. I don't have to worry anymore about you eating my lunch.
Agreed. Feel the same. Feel the same. It's funny. I've always had a partner with Washington Talent. I've always had my partner, Chuck. And I cannot speak highly enough about him. He's the greatest partner a guy could have.
He's great.
Greatest partner a guy could have. But Andy, you provided, with you and I, first of all, we got together just as friends hanging out.
Right.
We hadn't seen each other forever. And then the opportunity, you motivate me in a way. Look, I tend to be a little bit more business oriented in my life. I think I'm creative, but I think I'm more of a business head than I am a creative head. I believe that. And you are amazingly creative, and the things that you've done impressed me, and things I wanted to learn, and you made it fun.
Well, I appreciate that. And I could say vice versa, the same thing. But I know for me, I've been doing this a very long time. Decades, like a very long time. And I'm very happy with how I've done really well. However, for me, in recent years, I admit I was starting to feel some burnout. I want to put that out there. I've been doing it again a long time. I think that as creative people, we have a lot of, and everyone listening, every one of us are creative people. There's a lot of different things we can all do, and when you look into, and through the show, I'm learning the people that I'm interviewing. Some of them, we all have the main thing we're doing, but there's a lot going on. A lot of us are doing a lot of different things, even if it's also having workshops or me with the podcast, or there's just a lot that comes with the territory of being creative. And I know for me, in terms of the burnout, I was also getting tired of managing the business side of it. And I never felt that I was that great of a business person. Obviously I had a certain amount of acumen to last as long as I did and do as well as I have done. However, in terms of moving forward and taking it to another level, I felt limitations in my business ability. And so with you, or let's talk about you objectively, in the sense that I felt if only, and you don't know this, Robert, I didn't tell you this, for some number of years, I wasn't clear about the concept of a partnership and how that would go. And it was scary. It scared the hell out of me. I used to running everything myself, and I'm the final decision maker. I also enjoyed it. However, I started to think, geez, if only there was someone who really gets the business side, who, of course, there's creativity too, but takes the business side, can take it to a whole nother level and free me up more in order to deal more with the creative side of it. I thought if only I could find that kind of a person. I also know that in the process of looking for a partner, you can't just be impulsive, right? And jump into it. No matter how successful you view this other potential partner.
Don't worry, it took me a year to get you to commit. So believe me.
No, but I
could have got married quicker than that.
But I love the process, and I think that's critical. I listen to a lot of podcasts outside of the industry, and I had listened to a lot about the process of getting a partner and what that means. And the ones that have the most success would talk about how they took longer period of time and went very slowly and really checking out the person, because it's more than just the abilities, right? The business acumen, the creative acumen, but also what about the personality and being able to get along? And, I do feel that we see the world in a lot of similar ways, and we bring a different experience to it. So I know as we were getting to know each other and talk about this, I remember every single time this is how I knew, Robert, that you were the right person for me. It started to come about. I started to find that I would get so excited during our meetings. We were meeting at least weekly for God knows how long. Yeah. And I would find that I was starting to get excited again about the music, about the business like I used to be. And it was like it feels like a chemical explosion, right? We're bringing these different elements, and together I would leave so inspired. And I would say that was one of the most critical elements to check out a potential partner. You bring different angles to it, and that there's this excitement that it sparks.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's how I felt too. I think one of your guests, David Mon, made a comment about this is he said it a couple times. He said, this is a tough business. It's a tough industry. I think he said it 2 or 3 times in his interview. And you know what?
Yeah.
He could have said it 10 more times and I would have agreed with him.
Yeah.
It changes so quickly, so fast. Everything changes. And that thing you call burnout, I think, and you and I have been doing this about the same amount of time. We've been at this together a long time. And what once was, isn't anymore. And I think what happens is after a while, after making, and you've adjusted it, I've adjusted, and to stay successful, you have to keep adjusting. But after a while,
reinventing yourselves is what I would call it.
Reinventing.
We're all in this show talking about reinventing ourselves.
But reinventing yourself, after a while, I can understand it gets frustrating. But what happened is when you and I got together, I think what happened, the synergy between the two of us, we do see the world similarly, but we also see things differently. And look, the way you brought your company up and the way I got my company up,
very different,
totally different. And what you did, I've always been in the DC, Virginia, metropolitan area, Maryland. We've always been, a big boy on the block, but I've always been in my comfort zone. I've got great ideas. I've got great entertainers, but I've always been in my comfort zone.
Right.
You excited me the same way. You took me out of my comfort zone. You introduced me to a different events, different kinds of events, different thoughts about events. And I think that I did the same thing for you. So
absolutely.
So I believe that in any partnership, if anyone out there is talking about partnership, I think that's the key. I mean, I really do. You got to trust the people. And believe me, Andy, you and I've had a year of dating. So, I mean, it's been a long time that, we've been together talking, getting together, meeting. And we had many years as adversaries. I mean, really,
think about
it. Many years we were.
Yeah, we were fierce competitors.
Yeah, fierce competitors. And I think when we got together, that energy level, and I would give anybody out there who's thinking about a partner, make sure whatever you have with the partner, you trust them. That's the most important thing.
That's right.
But I mean, trust is everything.
Oh, that was a huge part of it.
But I think synergy is the next. Trust is the biggest.
Yeah.
Synergy is the next biggest. Does that person motivate you? Does that person bring something to you that you either don't have currently, don't know you have, want to grow to get, or do they provide a service that you can't do? I think it's very important that you think about those things.
I like that you just said don't know, that you have, because that's another interesting thing here I'm finding is that, because I'm very black and white about stuff. I think there's benefits to that the way I am, but there's also a cost to it as well. I don't see the gray real easily. And what I'm finding now is that I'm discovering there's more potential and opportunity than I even thought, than we literally talk about on paper. I again talk about the inspiration and the creative ideas that are jumping out here now and the possibilities. It's taking me in another direction I did not expect. I wanted that to happen, but I didn't know it would be to this degree. Where were you when we first started to talk, seriously, or really get to know each other a year ago? Where were you in the trajectory of your career? You said you've been doing this for a long time. Were you getting tired?
I was wondering what my next step would be. Because like I said earlier, Washington Talent has always been steady Eddie. We've always been that. Yes, we've reinvented ourselves through adding photography and videography, and then I mentioned earlier the MCs and the DJs. But again, this is a company that's been around since 1967. So it's. By the way, I didn't own it in 1967.
I was going to say, were you like in diapers or something?
No, I was a baby. Okay, I want to tell everybody I wasn't born, but I would be lying.
Right, I know.
I was born, but I was really young. Okay, so. No, I think that with me, I don't know if I was burnt out or more than I was just looking for the next. I was looking for the next thing. I was looking for what the next was. And, I think any listener out there would say, in listening to you speak, how creative you are, how motivating you can be. And you obviously have a great knowledge of this business. And that interested me. And that really excited me because even though I have a knowledge of the business too, you've done things all over the world. I mean, Andy, you've been everywhere.
Yeah.
I've been on the East Coast and a little bit on the West Coast occasionally.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I've done some, but not like you. And that's what really the thought of learning something new, a different way, excited me.
Right. And that's happening with me too, especially the way you run the business. It's really interesting to me. I think that's one thing those of us considering whether or not do we get a partnership, how does that go, is that we get very locked into our zone to the point where you almost don't even see anymore objectively. it's one of the reasons that I love to go travel. I mean, people have heard enough about my, doing that. But when I get away, especially if I get out of the country, to have a different perspective on it. And that's what's happening every day now. Talk about reinvention in so many different respects. Also, you bring an infrastructure that I didn't have. I mean, I had a boutique, in a sense, company, and you have about 30 full-time people, something like that, 28?
Somewhere in that area. I lose track, except on payroll days.
right. On payroll days, it's dead clear.
Then I get clear, right? Until if it's not a payroll day, I don't know how many I have.
But to have the infrastructure now behind me to be able to do this, oh my God, it's like a whole nother version of spreading my wings and flying. And I think each of us need that. Again, every single person I've interviewed, who has success for a long period, who has sustained it for a long period of time, talks about issues of potential burnout, but also the need to reinvent yourself, especially in today's market, right? That it's changing so dramatically, so quickly.
Reinvent or die.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's reinvent or die.
There's no choice.
There's no choice.
Taking all this into consideration, what are you looking at in the future now in terms of your own career personally with the business and the business itself?
I would love to expand more, I think, outside of the DC area. I would love to bring what you and I have put together to other people, other places. I'd like to, again, I know I only say this because you laugh at me every time, but I'd like to bring that happiness that I talk about.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring it to outside the DC metropolitan Virginia, area. And I think we can do that. I think we have great entertainers, and I think that we're both motivated like we've never been before.
Oh yeah.
And I think that would be great for me. At the same time, I think also even in my own backyard, there's ways to improve what I have. And again, my advice to anybody out there that's thinking about either a consultant or a partner or anything along those lines, it's really a good idea. You might give up a little temporary profit,
right,
for long-term gain.
There you go.
Because if it motivates you to do something different, I mean, look what you and I've already done with my showcases.
That's right.
All right, it's already changed.
Yeah.
So I really believe that there's a lot to be said for getting some really fresh outside ideas, whether it be a partner, whether it be a consultant, whether it be one of your employees. I think that fresh ideas are really important, and I think that's what you bring.
No, I love that. And as we get ready to wrap up, how would you define success?
Easy. Success is easy.
Yeah.
I would define success as making everybody happy. Honestly, I would want to go to an event. I would want to, from the beginning to the end, I would want to get the vision. I would want to understand the couple. I would, or the corporate client, or the bar bat mitzvah, parents and kids, whatever event you're doing. I would want to understand everything about them, and I'd want to make everybody happy. The party planner, I want to make the caterer. I want to go in there and do it the right way. And the right way is to go out there and do what everybody wants you to do and make everybody happy. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're there to do.
That's true. I love that. And what about, to close with, your own personal view of success? What does it mean to you? What makes you feel successful?
I think that, to me, I want to feel good about what I just did. I still play drums in the band. I've been doing this.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. You still do that.
I still do it. And I don't plan on getting, right now I have a rotator cuff tear.
Oh man, I feel for you.
And I haven't been able to play for 2 months.
Yeah.
And I miss this more than I can ever say. I'll put it to you this way, Andy. When people ask me what I do for a living, I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lawyer. I don't run an agency or a management company. I play drums in a band. That's success.
Well, man, thanks, Robert, for being on this show. I love having you a partner. I'm so excited about the future, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Robert Sherman. Please be sure to share it with friends and colleagues, and check out his website at washingtontalent.com. Again, washingtontalent.com. His social media handle is also Washington Talent. You can find all of this in the show notes at our website of theweddingbiz.com, and follow us at The Wedding Biz. And do not forget to listen to our follow-on segment that comes out each week on Wednesdays with each interview, called The Next Level. in which I have a guest co-host, and together we talk about some of the highlights, some of the main points of the interview, and help break them down and deliver them in ways that you can use to apply to your own business to grow and thrive. And this week's guest co-host is going to be none other than Sean Lowe. Sean's consulting firm, The Business of Being Creative, is focused on providing practical advice to those in the business of being creative. Every time I've got Sean on the next level, it is really a dynamic conversation, as you know. And now I'm excited to announce next week's guest, who I'm going to New York City to interview, and that is celebrity stylist Michaela Erlinger. And she is also a best-selling author. Michaela was named one of the most powerful stylists by The Hollywood Reporter. You know this is going to be a good one. So be sure to tune in next week. And we want to thank our sponsor, Party Slate. Be sure to check them out at partyslate.com. I personally endorse them. Again, partyslate.com. And we'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.